So far what we've done, we've talked about the actual process of incarnation, and then what we've talked about is how joining or attraction occurs between the two halves of the soul if they're in a state of perfection. And also we've talked about how the truth, desires and love are the things to activate within yourself, whether you're in error or not. They are the things to activate within yourself if you want to draw your soulmate to you, right? But we've yet to discuss sexual attraction. Can you see? We've discussed these principles, but we've yet to discuss sexual attraction. So what we need to do is we need to now put sexual attraction together with these other principles. All right?
So we were going to talk about sexy feelings and chakra openings.
Yes. Yep. So you want to draw the female over there, and I'll draw the male here. Draw them basically the same size if we can. Mary's always being different, right? Okay, so now many of us are aware in our first incarnation in particular that we have 7 primary chakra points. Now, what the chakras mean is that they are energy systems, aren't they, of our body? Our body has all this energy flowing through it, and where the crossover of energy occurs is they're called our chakras. I think there are points of 192 points of crossover are the major chakra points. So the major chakra points, if we just draw them in, the base chakra, then there's the second chakra, there's the third chakra, there's the heart, our fourth chakra, our throat, our fifth chakra, our third eye chakra, our sixth chakra, and then our crown chakra, seventh chakra. And each person has those. You actually have them, if they're operating perfectly, they're like a funnel of energy coming in and flowing out of your body, and they rotate in a clockwise direction. And they also come out the back of your body, so the back of your body and your front of your body, if you could think of it like. So if you're looking at my third chakra, there'd be like a funnel of energy coming out of both the back and the fronts of my body, like that. Right? Now, the back is more to do with intentions. In other words, what you're going to do in the future, or what you feel you want to do in the future in terms of your future life. And coming out the front is your current state or your current condition. In other words, what you are involved in right now. Do you see the difference? One is your future intentions or feelings of intention about a certain thing, and the other is the actual feelings you have right now about that particular thing. For that reason, you can have a chakra in a different state coming in at the same chakra, this third chakra, in a different state at the back compared to the front. So you could have that one open and that one closed. You could have that one operating in the reverse direction and this one operating in the right direction. You can have all sorts of things happening as a result of the two states. But let's simplify it and just look at the front in terms of our current state, because it's our current state that generates or determines most of what happens in terms of attractions between the two people.
So can we talk about what it's like if we were not injured, emotionally injured? What would happen sexually?
So you want to start with that, or you want me to?
No.
Mary's keeping me on ball, you see, today. That's what I've asked her to do. All right, so what would happen in a non-injured state is that every one of these chakras would be completely open and working perfectly, and I would have no sexual feelings whatsoever for any single person other than my soulmate. So, yeah.
So how does that happen on a chakra level, babe? Like, how does that...
Well, for example, if I can explain how it happens, it's a really important point.
Yep.
So imagine these chakras are like conduits of energy. They're like vortexes entering the body. Does that make sense? Or leaving the body. So you've got all these vortexes going into the body, if you like. If I draw them like that, like vortex in the body. Now, If I know myself completely, and I know my desires and passions in particular, but in particular I know who I am, I know I have a sense of who I am and everything, then that means my second chakra will be operating perfectly. Right? There will be no problems with it at all. And it's not just a simple matter, by the way, of having the chakra rotating in the right direction. There are 192 points of energy crossing this chakra, and every one of those points of energy would be operating in the right direction, right, for that to occur. So that's how that chakra is going to be very, very open. So if I know myself completely, now, if I come across and I see a woman there who doesn't know herself completely, right, could I be attracted to her? And the answer is quite easily no. I can't actually even be attracted to her. I can love her in the sense of care for her, and that's the state she's in, and have compassion for her, but I can't actually feel an attraction for her.
So you wouldn't feel any sexual attraction at all?
I wouldn't feel any sexual attraction for her as a result. You need to talk in the microphone.
But if she was your soulmate?
If she was your soulmate, you would still not feel a strong sexual attraction for her, but you would know she's your soulmate because you already have worked out who you are. Does that make sense? And therefore, it's easy for you to recognize the other half of yourself. So you might not feel drawn to her, you're not drawn to her injury. In other words, you're no longer feeling sexual feelings because of her having injuries, but you'll actually feel her real condition because you know yourself and you're recognizing yourself in the other half of you. Does that make sense?
So do you think it's true? Because you're sexually attracted to me, babe, I know. And I certainly have a lot of injury in this area.
Yeah.
Would you say that our sexual union or matching would not be complete or in full intensity until I work through those injuries?
Definitely cannot be.
But you would still have an attraction for me.
Well, let me talk about how attraction actually works. Yeah. It doesn't actually work by the other person's emotion. It works when the other person's emotion affects yours in such a way that there's a connection of energy flow, and then energy flows through you, through yourself. And it's your own energy you're actually feeling that's sexual in nature, not the other person's. Do you understand?
You need to explain that a bit more.
How can I explain this in a way that's easy to understand?
Do you want to use an injured example then?
If we use an injured example, it's sometimes easier to explain. Like, for example, let's say I, instead of being completely open with this chakra, in other words, everything being right with that chakra, I have a feeling of neediness directed out of me towards a woman. Right? The feeling is in my childhood that I'm probably denying is an emotion that my mother never really cared about me, never hugged me, never really felt love from her. I always felt like my mother didn't like men, and so therefore I feel like she doesn't like me. And instead of being angry with my mother about that, I decided that the best way to handle that emotionally is to try hard to get her approval all the time. In other words, I'm now needy for the woman's attention and approval. So that's coming out of me. I've drawn a different colour to show that it's not healed, but there's a feeling coming out of me here where I haven't healed this area of myself and I have a needy feeling going towards the woman. Now let's say the woman is very similar to my mother in that she has very similar emotions coming out of her that my mother had. In other words, she's angry with men, she feels like she wants to dominate a man and she wants a needy man to control. That's what she wants. So now, myself and her will be able to have a flow of energy flowing through this second chakra. Agreed? Now, because it's now flowing, this energy is now flowing, even though it's flowing because of an error, I will now feel a sexual attraction for this person. Because the energy between the two of us is flowing, and as a result, my own energy is flowing through me You see, every time there's a part of your body that's blocked from an emotional or energetic point of view, the flow of your own energy does not occur, right? But as soon as we engage a person with a sympathetic injury, the flow of energy through yourself will occur, which will have the effect of opening up the first two chakras, which are basically the sexually motivated chakras of our body. Does that make sense? And now that this is open, these two are open, because of the flow of energy that I've got happening out of this. This is in error and this is in error, but it causes a flow between. It's now causing a flow in me. So now I'm feeling sexual arousal due to the flowing of energy between myself and this other person. Do you see? I'm now feeling my own sexual arousal. The other person may not even be aware of it, right? But I will feel it.
It's very likely, though, that if these injuries are very complementary, we'd think this is the best love affair ever, and we're definitely soulmates and we can't get out of bed, you know, because if our injuries are so complementary, it causes the flow of energy that's been like blocked up and problematic for ages is open, and we feel this huge flow of sexual energy that we think is desire
for the other person. Now, the reality is if only one of these points open, we will already feel a level of sexual attraction, right? And the person can be 90 years old and I can be 20 and I'll feel it, right? It doesn't matter about age or anything else. It doesn't matter how they look. They can look pretty or ugly. It doesn't matter. I'll still feel it, right? There will still be this feeling that's generated, and therefore that will affect how I feel, and that will then motivate my choices and decisions. Now, imagine if there were two of these out of harmony with each other, but in sympathetic attraction. And the flow of energy between those two now occurring.
So, for example, if as a woman I have lots of sexual shame, I feel icky because something happened in my childhood and I feel my sexuality is dirty and I'm yuck. And here's a man who feels like, what would be the sympathetic injury? He feels like he doesn't have any sexual shame. He feels like he can do anything sexually and it doesn't bother him at all.
In other words, he's quite shameful how he uses his sexuality. The woman would then feel very comfortable with him. He's not going to shame her.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you understand?
Exactly.
Yeah. So now we've got two chakras totally open with the feelings flowing through ourselves, feelings flowing from the top to the base, flowing through ourselves. How strong is our sexual desire going to be now for that person? Much stronger, you see. Now imagine if there was 3 or 4, which is highly irregular, by the way, on the planet to have that many totally open in an injury state to each other. But imagine if there was 3 or 4. It would be such an overwhelming feeling, wouldn't it?
That we'd say it's not just sexual attraction, it's love.
Yeah. It's love, and she's my soulmate, or he's my soulmate, or whatever.
Like if I'm a woman who doesn't want to speak up because I'm afraid of men and I'm afraid of being shamed or humiliated, and I attract a man who's very willing to speak up in every situation and take care of all of those things.
And who feels that a woman needs to be kept quiet anyway.
Yep.
Right?
Then I'll be happy.
Another attraction.
Yep.
Right? Can you see? The more of the injury attractions I have, the more of the injuries that I have that are sympathetic with the other person, the stronger the feeling is, the stronger the bond is. Right? And that's the problem with sexual attraction on the planet. That's the problem. We're often in codependent sympathetic injuries, and the injuries are so intense that we're denying them, both parties are denying them, that when we do feel an attraction, we're not going, wow, what injury is causing this attraction? We're going, wow, this is it's a pure relationship. Now, on top of that, let's say on our 6th chakra that we have a large degree of connection with a group of spirits. In other words, I'm a male in this case, and I have a huge group of male spirits with me who are sexually dominant, and in fact, many of them might have even raped when they were on Earth or been sexually, really abusive while they were on Earth sexually. So let's say now I've got a connection with them. How would I generate a connection with them? I might be afraid of them, for example. Or I may feel like feel powerless without them. So in other words, I want the power they give me, the feeling of power and control they give me. Now imagine that. Now we've got spirits who can share in this flow of sexual energy passing through me when these things open. So what are those spirits going to want to do? They are going to want to find a woman with a codependency and also sympathetic addictions that will open me up by being with her, so they can now share in my experience, my sexual experience. Now, I not only have the complexity of dealing with my own unhealed emotions, but now I'm actually supporting the unhealed emotions of a group of spirits with me who are now looking at the women and going, there's one, there's one, and they're pointing out to this man, and he's drawn to look at them. They're pointing out to this man the women who he could get into bed with, right? Through their codependent addiction-based injuries. So now we have a group of spirits influencing and sharing from, like vampires, sharing on the sexual feelings that are passing through this man, and they are now setting up his love life for him. They are now actually pointing out the women, and he's drawn to those particular women as a result. They're pointing out the women with whom he feels an attraction, and the reason why is they wish to share in this flow of energy that's flowing through him. Or there might be women spirits with her wishing to share in the flowing of energy flowing through, or even male spirits with her wanting to share the flow of energy through her, and so they cause her to feel like, yeah, he's the man. He's the person that I want to be with. Can you see now it's getting quite complex in terms of attraction? This is where sexual attraction now has become so muddy that how do we even know what's going on? How do we know whether it's our own attraction or another person's attraction? And this is where much confusion results, where we have women spirits with us, men spirits with us. Usually most people have both genders with them due to the different injuries involved. Now some of those women spirits, like if I had a group of men spirits with me who were attracted to men, or women spirits with me who were attracted to men, and my energy is going to flow even greater when a man is on the other end of this, even though my man's not my soulmate. The openness and the emotions involved and the spirit influence involved will cause me to feel an attraction to the male automatically. So I can even be confused about what gender my soul is actually attracted to in that state. And therefore we have a lot of sexual attraction confusion. And therefore many people feel like they're bisexual as a result, because they have both sets of injuries. Like, for example, as a male, I might be very, very angry with my father and very considerate of my mother, right? And then if I have a group of women with me who feel that I should feel that way, considerate of mum and angry with dad, those women may also then want to hook up sexually with another male, and they can, through the opening of these injuries and sexual feelings flowing through me, cause me to desire a male connection, when in reality I am a heterosexual male. So there's lots of confusion that can result through these injuries occurring between the two halves. Katerina, can we have a microphone there?
So would you say that the parent's projection is less of a pull on this one, or is it more the spirit influence that makes you do that? Like, because I grew up, everybody wanted me to be a boy, and so I thought, males are better, and then, or like, I would be attracted to women in the sense I would think women are more beautiful than men. And
well, everything is based upon the emotional injuries you absorbed from your parents. Remember, this spirit attraction is based upon an emotional injury as well. So the spirit attraction is an effect of the underlying cause. And the underlying cause is the unhealed emotion that exists within the different... remember, the emotions cause the crossing of the energy flows in your body. So if you understand that it's the emotion that causes the chakras to even operate in any direction, then you understand that each particular emotion can have an effect on the operation of the energy that flows in and out of your body and also flows through your own body. Now remember, I'm saying to you that the sexual attraction is an emotion, is a feeling that flows through your body, and it is activated by what flows in and out of your body. Right? So interesting that he's come giving you a hug right at that point. So another thing you don't want to know about there, Katerina. Yeah. Sorry about that.
But it makes sense because I understand now, like the feelings that I had that were not mine altogether, because it didn't make sense.
Yeah. Can I point out to you what happened in this interaction with your son? Sexual attraction is still an issue that you feel much shame surrounding. And every time a person talks about sexual attraction, you remember some of your past, which you feel ashamed about. Now, the feeling is you don't want to feel that shame. So you want to know the information without feeling the shame. And then Peter always comes to Mummy's rescue. Whenever Peter feels like Mummy wants to avoid an emotion, she needs me now, and he comes rushing up as a result. Does that make sense? So the key for you is to, yes, it's good to ask these questions, but also to notice how your own shame affects the question even, like in terms of what's going on. Yeah.
Thank you.
But what was the other statement you wanted to make? Was there any? No? That was it. Okay. Any other questions surrounding this? Eva, thanks.
Well, I've felt a lot resistance actually to asking. Something's going on, but what happens if you start healing some part of this?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been with my partner for 29 years,
Mm-hmm.
and now I don't have any sexual desire whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
But still there is kind of a bond flowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Can I point out the two main impediments to desire? What are they? So the main impediments to desire, so if we're looking at what will affect desire, what are the main reasons why a person wouldn't feel desire? There's two main reasons.
Can you think of any?
Can you think of them?
Just any desire, even.
Any desire for anything.
Fear is the primary thing.
Is a primary one, and anger is another. And of course, there's another that's probably fairly dominant as well, which is shame, which is the result of judgment, if you like. Right? Yep. Now, those things in particular affect desire. Right? So, if you don't feel sexual desire, then something's going on with one of these three things. Does that make sense?
or all three of them.
Or all three of them, yes. Yep. Now, in particular when it comes to healing emotions revolving the other gender, or in terms of attractions, what we need to do is we need to be particularly focused upon the feelings we have with the other gender. So if you're with a male and that's your partnership at the moment, then what you need to do is look at your fears with a male, your anger with the male, and your shame. Now, when I say fear, anger and shame with the male, I'm also saying in regards to yourself as a female with the male. Yeah. So in other words, you may have lots of shame that is sexual in relationship to the male that may be dictating why you've closed down things sexually. Now, the key is firstly to start with the anger generally, because the reality is that shame and fear are emotions that we usually cover over with anger. So in other words, we use anger as a way of suppressing shame and fear feelings. And what we need to do often is start with the anger, and then we will be able to get into the fear and shame related issues. Now, many people, after periods of time in their life, shut down sexual desire. And they say to us that, we're in a lovely relationship, but we don't have a sexual desire. And my answer to that is, well, you're not in a lovely relationship, number one, because a lovely relationship will include sexual desire. Now, many men understand that, right, because they're less shut down to sexuality many times than women, because because of multi-generational reasons. Many women are more shut down to sexuality than men because of multi-generational reasons. For example, many women have been harmed by men sexually. So therefore there is a lot of anger and fear and shame associated with the opposite gender regarding sexuality. And so that causes them to shut down towards the opposite gender. Many women have been treated, objectified, shall we say. Most men are not objectified by sex. In other words, when a man's self-definition in the world we currently live in is often more about what he accomplishes than his sexual life. But many women are objectified by sex. They just are projected out from men that they are sexual objects. That causes many women to feel a great deal of anger towards men as a result, because the male is not accepting her other attributes, but rather only accepting one part of herself, just her sexual self. And even then, they don't really care the personality of the sexual self. They're only caring about the vagina and the breasts and the bottom and so forth. You know, they're only really connected to the physical of it. And because of that, many women have lots of anger about that in comparison to men. Most men, you know, not as angry about those particular things. So culturally and environmentally, there is a lot more pressure on women, and has been multi-generationally a lot more pressure on women to shut down their sexual desires than there is by men. For that reason, many men don't feel as injured sexually. They have often perpetrated injuries sexually, and therefore they have many emotions to deal with as a result, but they don't feel as injured with their sexuality as women do. And for that reason, in a relationship, many women close down sexually before the man does. And I'm not saying that's always the case, because nowadays there is a lot more problems with impotence in men as well. And that is the direct result of anger in the male towards the female. So there is these growing issues and problems in sexual relationships due to these three primary emotions being held on to. Does that help you with the question?
Yes.
Can you feel why you didn't want to ask the question?
At first, I felt a lot of fear about asking it.
Yeah.
And I felt also a lot of impatience that we never came to a point where it would be appropriate actually to ask it.
Right.
And I wanted to be very personal, it should be about myself and my partner, if he would like that.
Yeah.
So it was a lot about, I didn't want to take up the space here.
Yeah.
Kind of not being important enough or being wrong for some reason.
Yeah, see, I suggest actually that the real reason, Eva, is that there are women spirits with you who do not want you to heal your sexual desire.
I actually guessed about that, but I'm not so aware of spirits.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
Thank you for that.
And this is happening with many women at the moment. There are many, many spirits in the spirit world, women spirits in the spirit world, who are enraged by the entire concept of the soulmate union. In other words, they feel the soulmate union is definitely not where women want to go. They believe that they want women to have power over men because they've had years and years, many thousands of years of being dominated by men. Now they wish the women on the planet, they see a growing movement on the planet where women can now dominate men. And so what they try to do, they try to influence the women to use sex as a tool for control. And so many women are doing this now and causing women, the women in the spirit world, are doing this now, causing women on the earth to either be afraid, angry or ashamed and stay in those emotions rather than healing those emotions towards the opposite gender.
Or I would say be in rebellion of those emotions.
Be in rebellion of those
either shut
emotions.
down sexually completely
Yeah.
or reclaim sexuality, but in a very angry way that objectifies men. So I see this growing trend amongst women of my generation to be quite promiscuous and
Overtly sexual. They become like men, in fact. They've become like the men of the past.
Yeah. And apparently shameless. But I feel it's it's a rebellion against these core feelings that most women carry around sexuality.
And they call it reclaiming your sluttiness. Basically, that's what many women have in the younger generation are now involved in as well. So you can go into rebellion, which is not what you're doing. You're really going into the shutdown place.
Yes,
and
I think it's
there's a lot of anger
fear.
in that.
It's anger.
No, there's always anger in being shut down.
Okay.
Always anger. Remember, I said start with the anger. Fear and shame are the underlying emotions, but start with the anger. The anger is always the start, because whenever we shut down, can you feel, whenever you shut down, imagine for a moment you and I were standing the opposite sides of a door, and you got the door and closed it on me. That's what you're doing sexually.
That's anger.
That's anger,
Yeah.
you see?
Yeah.
Why would you want to get the door and close it on the person? Does that make sense? This is what's happening between yourself and Pierre.
To protect myself.
To protect yourself. There's other reasons too. There's a lot of reasons, but can you see they all have to have an angry effect? So the causes might be fear and shame, but the angry effect
The action
is the action or the choice to reject the connection. And therefore, the anger is where you need to start. And see, many of us don't want to own the anger, and so we deny it exists and so forth, and we want to focus on our fear and shame. But the actual act of closing the door on another person, in whatever circumstance, is actually an angry act. So the reality is there must be anger present. Does that make sense?
Yes. So what would the way be? I mean, is it to get into a sexual situation and then kind of get in touch with my anger and
Certainly,
get out of it?
that is one way, certainly, to allow yourself to be touched sexually and then to feel your resistance to that. And then not just to feel it, but express it. Like, so, you know, if your partner touches you sexually and then you feel like really annoyed by it, then let yourself, instead of just feeling, you know, really express your annoyance. And you'll
Not
be,
to your partner, obviously.
well, you know, obviously he's going to be present because he's just touched you. But if you express your annoyance just in terms of letting the emotion flow, what will come out of your mouth will often be a complete reflection of that anger. So in other words, you'll be surprised sometimes what comes out of your mouth, right? I've been often surprised what comes out of mine when I've felt something between myself and Mary, and then I go into this emotion, I feel, and off I go, and then wham, you know, there it is. That's the emotion. I can feel that now, you know, just by saying the words that are coming out of me while I'm feeling the feeling of anger in this case. So you could engage it that way, or you could just notice what annoys you on a day-to-day basis with regard to men. So you know, if he's never cooked a meal, does that annoy you? Because it's whatever annoyances are there that actually cover over the reason why you've closed the door. Does that make sense? And so a lot of times we overlook our annoyances in a relationship. Quite frequently, in fact, we do so. Where, for example, Mary might have cooked my meals for me for 10 years. And in that whole time, the only time I've ever cooked a meal for her was when I took her out to dinner somewhere else where somebody else cooked. Right? Let's say that's what happened. So 10 years she's had of this now. Can you feel that if she really felt herself emotionally, she'd be going, wow, he really expects me to do this. He really wants me to, you know, provide, you know, cook the meal for him all the time. Many men don't even know how to cook, let's face it, like because of this emotion, particularly, you know, in different cultures. And she then feeling a build-up of resentment that occurs over years. Naturally so, wouldn't it be? Because I'm not, you know, being loving, and I'm not even noticing that I'm being unloving. That naturally then would cause this resentment to build up over the years. Now, as the resentment builds up, that's anger, the sexual desire will automatically shut down. Has to. You can't have desire when there's anger present. Right? So, yeah. Does that make sense, Eva? So look at those annoyances with men in particular. It's the annoyances with men and the beliefs about yourself that will cause your anger to become present. So when I say the beliefs about yourself, they are the areas to look at, like, you know, do you feel that your body's getting older now and therefore you're not as attractive anymore? Do you feel like, you know, You know, might have had, like in many women, they've had a few children, and the doctors have had to cut their vagina and do things to get some of those children out, and they now have a scar with a cesarean as well, and so forth, and they don't feel as attractive, and therefore they don't feel like, you know, they really feel like the man would find them attractive either, and so forth. So look at the areas of, you know, what the man is doing and your frustrations and annoyances, and then look at also how you perceive yourself. What are the beliefs you have about yourself sexually in particular? Yep.
Thanks.
All right.
Yes.